let's just recording in progress. Okay. Let's just wait another few minutes, and later others can also join today's event. As a reminder, we will record today's event, and we will send this video to YouTube later after some reviewing, because today's speaker is from Indeed, so the Indeed company need to review the content before we publish it. So if you feel like any concerns for the video get published, please just notify us. Okay. Okay. So I think let me just quick introduce today's event, and meanwhile let's wait for maybe the others from join as well. So we have our WebHack monthly tech event tonight, and it's our pleasure to have Wanasit as our speaker. And his topic is demystifying coding interviews. And this is today's schedule. We have opening now, and quickly there will be Wanasit slides, and for the last part, it will be the Q&A. And because today's slides may be a little longer than usual, so we will keep the still keep some Q&A time, but maybe this time we don't have the networking session. So if you have any questions or comments, feedback, please just type in the chat of the room. And we have a little announcement. So today is our 50th event, and thanks for every speaker and attenders. That's a really a surprise to us. You know, actually we started this tech event, monthly tech event, just start from 6 people, and the first event is plus speaker is maybe just 8. So today we have a lot of attenders, and we keep working on this event to provide everyone a place we can share and can learn together. So as usual, welcome everybody. And I think in this COVID-19 time, the most important thing is keep safe. So, and also enjoy what the online event can provide. So that is saying we are still surviving, but please just feel free to give us any comment or feedback or any ideas. We will try to provide what we can, and to make this tech event better. And also please enjoy our video on YouTube channel. We are still trying a lot of tech issues, but if you want to check the previous topics, you can subscribe to our channel. And we also have a campus page with 1,040 members plus more, and each event we have a lot of attendance. So we are not just stop here. I think we can have more different tries and different ways to share and to help everybody. So if you feel you want to give help by giving a talk as well, then please fill this form like Fonda just shared in the chat. You can fill it out anytime, and we will contact you later. So let's welcome today's speaker, Wanasit, and he will share his slide after I stop this one. Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you. Okay. Hello. Hope everyone can see my slide perfectly. So hi, thank you everyone for coming. So I think the talk name is a little bit different, but yeah, this talk is mostly about like how Indeed asks coding interview question. We're gonna talk a lot about coding interview. So first, let me introduce myself and give a background about myself. My name is like my GitHub name is Wanasit, and inside Indeed, people also call me Wanasit. I have been at Indeed for more than 7 years. So previously, I used to be work as like a software engineer and also people manager. I used to be a hiring manager. I have experience hiring people into my team. I have been working at Indeed for 7 years, so I have seen like many things change to our interviewing process. I have also experienced some people that we actually hire, some people that we interview, and I still like see and work with them today this day. I currently also work as like interview trainer group at Indeed. That means not only I interview engineer and interview candidate for Indeed, but I also help coaching other engineers who want to be an interviewer. I also wrote some of the interview questions that we use at Indeed. So about this talk, I need to give a disclaimer that this talk is not written by Indeed exactly, like there is no such a thing as like standard manual or something. If there is one, I probably cannot share with you like directly. So this presentation is written by me based on my research, not only at Indeed, but I like also like research other company how they do interviewing and compare it to Indeed. So my goal about giving this presentation is that I want to share and give every company, every people in Tokyo like the same playing field. I want to share what Indeed have been knowing about hiring, and hopefully other interviewer and other company can replicate. If you are not interviewer but you looking to prepare for the interviewing, like hopefully by understand the interviewer perspective, you would do better at interviewing as well. So today agenda, I will like first go over the Indeed interview structure overall, and second part I will talk focusing on the coding interview part, and the third part as mentioned, will share some tips about people who going to take coding interview. So third part about structure interview. So as mentioned, this talk is for interviewer and company and employer. So for the employer in the audience and interview, so if you're going to take only one thing from this presentation, if you're gonna remember only one slide, like I hope it would be this one. So that's why I put it early. I don't know if it's the right strategy. Maybe I should put it later one to remind you. But so first, like at Indeed and at Google, and yeah, basically Indeed copy a lot of practice from Google. We copy Google and those famous company. But if we were to copy, we should make sure that we copy the right thing. So at Indeed, we are using structure interview, not only coding interview. Structure interview and coding interview are different. Sorry. So structure interview and coding interview are different. So if you read like Google research, what actually Google talking about their interview, they actually focusing on structure. Having structure to the interviewing process is more important than question or exercise that you're going to use and ask the candidate. So let me explain further. So let me give you first an example of how Indeed would never interview a candidate. So an unstructured interview is we're talking about having an interview, that interviewer coming in. Interviewer could be a manager or interview, and he would ask some question to the candidate. It could be like traditional HR question. It could be Google style brain teaser. It could be technical, but it probably doesn't matter like what kind of question. And then that interviewer going to evaluate the candidate based on how or what the answer the candidate give and decide if this person is a good fit or not. So the problem with this format is that if I put interviewer in this format, every interviewer would think that they are doing a good job. Most of the interviewer will think that they understand the candidate by just talking for 1 hour. They understand the skill of the candidate. They can see through the candidate, which most of the time not the case. Or maybe I don't know, like maybe there are some interviewer out there who actually good at interviewing and able to read the candidate, able to experience. But at Indeed, we not put the trust into like interviewer intuition. Instead, we put the trust into the structure and process. So for me, the structure interview like consists of 3 components. So first, in order to be structured into, we will have a process. We will decide ahead of the time what are we looking for in the candidate, for people, what we are looking for people who gonna be engineer at Indeed. We're going to have the clear skill that we're looking for. We're going to decide the exercise and question to extract those skills ahead of the time. We will not just come in and ask the question right on the spot. We will plan ahead and have a set of questions prepared ahead of the time. In addition to having the question, we will also have the shared understanding and clear metric about what are the good answer for this kind of question. We will have a metric and calibration on, for experienced engineer, what are the answer, what are we expect people to be able to solve on this question given like amount of time. And because of that, we're going to provide an interviewer training. We're going to train interviewer and calibrate the interviewer on grading on this question. And the third component is that we're going to be aware of personal bias of each interviewer and try to have measure to make sure that those personal bias not intervening with the interview. And probably the first component is that hopefully this process gonna be constantly reviewed and make adjustment over the time. So, and this is the Indeed engineering process for the software engineer as of today. So if you apply for a software engineer job at Indeed, you would have to go to the phone screen interview. Recently, we use a service called Karat, which is typically a whiteboard coding exercise, 30 to 60 minutes. After you pass the screening, you will enter the main interviewing session. So Indeed interview consists of 5 interviews, like 2 of them are coding, whiteboard coding exercise. As you can see, like the whiteboard coding exercise made up of significant portion of our interview process, but not everything is whiteboard coding exercise. We do architecture interview, we do code review interview, and we do resume deep dive. So these are the skills that we identify ahead of the time that necessary to work as an engineer at Indeed. And at each skill, like at each interview, we train the interviewer to measure those skills. So that the structure, that the process. So next about the bias and how we have put measure to counter the bias. So first I need to explain like what is bias and what I mean by bias. So I use the word bias in very general meaning. What I mean is probably mean kind of personal soft spot, I would say, and it could be anything. And whether you recognize it or not, it could be many things. This could be technical bias, it could be personal bias and many. So for example, that I give in the list, like, yeah, if you like the candidate English accent or something, like, yeah, which sound not fair, but maybe the second one is more realistic. So imagine you are a good engineer. Because you are a good engineer, you probably write tests. And deep down, whether you know it or not, when you see the candidate write test in the coding interview, you kind of feel good about this candidate. You feel like, yeah, this candidate, it follow good practice, and you kind of give positive score about this candidate. When you see the candidate who don't write code at all, doesn't test his code, then you feel negative about this candidate. Or if you like like X algorithm, or if you like functional programming language, like when the candidate solve the problem with functional programming style, you kind of feel good about this candidate. So whether you know it or not, like each of us like have this kind of tendency and bias. So as we know, each of these are not reliable signal. Like, yeah, maybe that candidate who didn't write test just have a bad day. He typically write test every day, but it happened that today he forgot because he excited or something, like he forgot on just exactly this interview. Or vice versa, when you say people write functional programming language, maybe he studied that on PhD and like, yeah, that doesn't count for many things. So there is a simple way to counter this personal bias. So we do it is that we just need to have multiple interview with multiple people, and hopefully those bias will average out and give us clear skew of where is this candidate on average. So yeah, just like when we design system, how to eliminate single point of failure. So we add replica, we add more independent interview. One caveat that we need to be careful is that having multiple interviews is not enough. Like we should also make sure that those interviews are independent. And at Indeed, we have many measures to make sure that those interviews are independent. For example, like those 5 interviews after the candidate take those interviews. At Indeed, we have a rule that those interviewers are not allowed to talk about the candidate. Because for example, if I'm the interviewer and after I finish interviewing, I talk to another interviewer, hey, how this candidate doing? Like, yeah, he didn't do well on my interview or something. When I say that, it would affect how that the other interviewer evaluate the candidate. And we don't want that. We want every interview to be independent. We don't want bias from one interviewer to go to another interviewer. Or even some small thing like during the debrief, like we encourage junior interviewer to speak first before the more senior engineer. Again, to make sure that more senior interviewer not influence the junior interviewer. To give you an idea about how far we counter the bias at Google, we don't do it at Indeed, but at Google, there is a thing called like hiring committee. So if you are an interviewer at Google, after you interview, you write feedback and submit. There will be a separate group of people to read your feedback and evaluate the candidate. You would not even know if this candidate passed or not. You will not have a chance to discuss or talk to other interviewer at all. So this is how far we try to counter this personal bias. So that the overall process of Indeed structure interview. So next I want to focus on the coding interview part. So as I mentioned, the coding exercise is made up of like significant portion of Indeed interviewing process. So we call it coding interview. Sometimes we call whiteboard coding interview or just whiteboard. The reason we call it whiteboard interview is back in the day, we ask people to come into our office and solve the problem on the whiteboard. But you know, this after the COVID time, we adapt. We found that most of the engineers cannot code on the whiteboard anymore. So going forward, you probably solve the problem on a shared document with some syntax highlights, with some autocomplete or something, with support to, hopefully better for the candidate and the interviewer. So in this exercise, you expect to write realistic workable code in your programming language of choice. We don't accept pseudocode, just explanation doesn't count, like you have to write real code. Typically the session is 45 to 60 minutes and you support to solve one technical problem. For some company like Facebook or something, recently there is a trend that like some companies start asking multiple questions instead of one difficult question. They ask easier question but you support to do it very quick, do multiple of that in one session. So that's the format for coding interview. And just to give you an idea about interviewer perspective, interviewer objective. So I started interview the first time around 5 to 6 years ago. So when I start interviewing, like this is my interviewer trainer at the time teach me about interview. He said that as an interviewer, you have basically two objectives that you have to do. So the first and most important thing is you need to get the signal from the candidate. You need to understand the candidate technical skill. So yeah, you have 1 hour to talk to this candidate. And yeah, you at the end of the interview, you need to have a strong opinion about this person working skill. The worst thing that could happen is like at the end of interview after 1 hour, yeah, I'm not sure about this candidate. Maybe he could solve this problem if I tell him this point. If he get more time, maybe he can solve it, maybe not. So that kind of weak signal, that kind of weak, like, yeah, and we think that that's not good, that wasting time for both you and the candidate. So at the end of the interview, interviewer should be confident and have a strong signal. I think this candidate is a good fit, or I think this candidate needs a few more years of experience before able to for this role or something. So that's the first objective. Second objective, so first objective is try to get the signal. Second objective as an interviewer, what interviewer try to do is making sure that candidates have positive experience, whether like you able to solve the problem or not. When you interview with a good candidate, when you interview with a good interviewer, the candidate should feel positive, should have a nice time. So which mean like if you are a strong candidate, if you like able to solve the question, the interviewer should, you know, keep challenging, keep the thing challenging, keep the thing interesting, and making sure that you feel that this question is challenging. And for the candidate that not able to solve the problem, if you struggling, if you not, the interviewer would still need to give you some hint, give you some encouragement to go on. And at the end of interviews, hopefully, even if you not get high, even if you not pass the interview, you still feel positive about like the interview overall. You still learn some interesting skill that you could be using or something. So yeah, that easier said than done. Like, yeah, so like especially when you need to evaluate the candidate at the same time. But these are the two things that the interviewer typically try to do during the coding exercise. So this is how we train the interview at Indeed. Like, yeah, so when you are an engineer at Indeed and you want to start being an interviewer at Indeed, you will start as a student interviewing student. So at this stage, you pick an interview question from the list, from the pool of interview questions that we have, and you start shadow or observing interview on that question. At this stage, your objective would be try to calibrate yourself, try to understand about like where, like for the good candidate, for experienced engineer, when they solve this question, how far they can go on this question, or for less experienced engineer, where can they solve this question, and where typically people stuck on this question. After they develop the understanding about how to evaluate on this question, you will start lead, we call lead with shadow, which is you start asking questions with more experienced interviewer reward shadowing you. Like now experienced interviewer will be shadowing you. So you will start asking candidate questions, try to like help guiding the candidate. And most of the time, more experienced interviewer will not intervene unless it really go very bad or something. And at the end of interview, every time the more experienced interviewer will give you the feedback about how you do and what can you do to improve. And after a lot of practice, after that, after we believe that you are good on this question, we will say that you graduate and you can start asking this question independently. And if you want to switch a question to a new question, the process starts over again from the student. So choosing interviewing question for the coding interview. Yeah, I can talk about this topic for the whole day, but these are the highlights that I think, like in summary, what we are looking for when we choosing the question for coding exercise. So yeah, despite what people say, good interview question should be relevant and practical. It should require like common data structure knowledge. It should not require the candidate to know or heard about very rare algorithm or data structure that we not use in real life. The good interview question should be challenging in a good way. We should avoid the question that rely on single aha moment, or the question that either you know it and you're able to solve the question, or you don't know it and you cannot do it at all. So if we ask that kind of question, it basically we measure if candidate know one fact, and that doesn't tell us many things. So good interview question going to have multiple way to solve problem and multiple layer of problem solving. So after candidate recognize that they can do this, then they have to make the decision about this. And after they make decision, it's still require thoughtful implementation and show some skill. So yeah, we like the question that have multiple layer like that. Also, the other part that also called like we also like the interview question that robust and easy to ask and agnostic to programming language and every platform. So every platform should be easier to solve like in any programming language. For example, like when we ask string or text related question, people who use C or C++ typically struggle because in standard C or C++ library, typically they don't have like the function to work with string. So when we have that situation, normally we need to give some helper function or some advantage to make sure that it's fair. Also, above all else, like for choosing interview question above all else, regardless of whatever question that you use, most important thing is you should try that question first before asking to the candidate. You should dog food your own interview question. Ask that interview question to the engineer in your company and see like how far typical engineer can go on that question. Yeah, you should note how far and fast the interviewee engineer in your company can solve this question. You also should note how many different ways people can solve this question. You will be often surprised that some people might discover a new way that you didn't think about. Also notice how many ways people can fail at the question, like where good engineer typically stuck on this question, and what are the necessary hints that you need to give the candidate. So that is about about indeed interviewing process structure, and I give a deep dive into the coding interview, how we train the interviewer. So the next part, these are the interviewing tip that for people to take the coding interview. So first, again, disclaimer. I think some of these tips gonna be controversial. Go on the different from what people say on the internet, but yeah, I cannot promise the result. But this is my honest opinion and like interviewer opinion, and either you believe it or you not believe it. But first, my advice would be that in opposite to what people say on the internet, in contrary to what people believe, number one reason that people fail on the coding interview that I typically observe is not because they lack of algorithm knowledge or data structure, but because they're not good at programming. So, and when I say programming, I mean normal programming experience that you can gain at work or at school or something. And by saying this, I'm actually might offend some people. Like some of you might actually not agree or feel offended when I say this. Like, who am I to say that you are not good at programming? But again, like I don't know you. Maybe you are not most people that I'm talking about. But let me explain further. So the test is during the interview, we measure like that you must be able to turn your idea into code very quickly, very efficiently, like in the programming language of your choice. Sometimes using library is okay, but no pseudocode, no hand-wavy explanation. If you if you able to explain it how you want to solve it, but you cannot write a code that do what you said, it not really useful as an engineer at Indeed. You should be able to turn that idea into code. For example, if you say that you're going to sort an array by creation date, pick the top 5 and the lowest 5 and 5 average, and then then you should be able to do it very quickly in your programming language of choice. Just do it. And also, like, you should be, in addition to able to code it, you should be able to understand what you wrote in detail as well. Like, I'm talking about general debugging skill and understand what happened under the hood in your platform, how the data is actually moved, stored, and organized when you run this kind, when you ask computer to do this. So if you like, my first advice is that practice this normal programming skill before trying to practice algorithm. And when you do practice algorithm, I would say that, so when we ask people to practice algorithm, what we hope people practice is on the left side. We're looking for people who have strong foundation and understanding in theoretical understanding, the fundamental. But most of the time we found that the candidate read cracking coding interview and take the lead code, do the lead coding. I would say that, like, these are shortcuts. You're not really spending time to understand the foundation. So, and when you take the shortcut and not spending time to understand the fundamental, like, it not only like not improving your coding interview, like it might actually harm the coding interview. First, like, it go against typically engineering practice. Like, it not in real life, we don't code like that, like we gonna do in the puzzle solving code. So also, to be honest, like as an interviewer, I kind of able to recognize which candidate actually practice a lot of puzzle solving, not doing study like normal foundation study. Typically, it's the candidate who suddenly able to recognize and come up with the solution. They didn't try simple thing first. They didn't like realize that this is what the theoretical knowledge that back this up or something. So my justification is this: like, do you want to focus on getting high this time, or you want to improve your foundation that stay with you for your whole career? So if you take the shortcut, that means you focus on getting high this time. But if you practice the foundation, if you study the foundation, if you improve your foundation, this will make you be a better engineer, and it will compound and stay with you for the rest of your career. And this is biased opinion, but I can share that I never seen someone who already mastered algorithm have a strong foundation knowledge, already master that. I never seen someone who already have that knowledge fail coding interview. But I have seen many people who been doing lead coding and they still fail coding interview. So I don't say that puzzle solving or lead coding is not useful, but my suggestion would be like do 70% textbook study and like 20 to 30% practice lead coding, puzzle solving. So my last advice is about using clean code. So about using clean code in the coding interview. So I think there is a misunderstanding about coding interview out there, that the interviewer typically don't care about the code quality as long as it runs, as long as it solve problem, as long as it's fast. Like, we don't care about coding quality or something. First, this statement is wrong. Most interviewers do care about code quality. At Indeed, we can assign you negative score if you not actually write high quality code. But second, even if it's correct, which is not correct, but even if this statement is correct, it's still missing the point. You think that you write the code for the interviewer, but no, I would say that you should write a clean code for yourself. So let's think about it a little bit about why we have best practice. Imagine if you were to write a code for your production or something, why we have best practice, why we have to write a clean code. Because we want to avoid the mistake. You don't want to make a bug. You don't want to avoid mistake. And I would say during the coding interview, you cannot really afford to make a mistake because you don't want to spend time and energy to debug or something. And yeah, don't ever think that like, yeah, interviewer will not support your bug. Like, yeah, you will like, yeah, so let me give another story, an example. So as I mentioned, we train a lot in order to ask this interview question. So that means when I ask this interview question, I have seen 10, maybe 100 of people solve this question before. I have seen good code, bad code on this question or on this solution or something. So even if you write bad quality code or something, yeah, the interviewer actually don't care about your code, like can able to read your code however it's bad and able to support bug on your code because we got a lot of practice on this question. But you have seen this question for the first time. You like if someone gonna make a mistake and put the bug in, it probably gonna be you, not the interviewer. So applying the good practice, applying the clean code is for yourself, not for the interviewer. So during the interview, well, as same as in production, you should write the code as clean as possible. That means, yeah, do the refactoring. Even if the interviewer don't ask you to do refactoring, you should refactoring, not for the interviewer, but for yourself. You should be used a good naming, you should be used good abstraction, you should make it very clean that there is no place for the bug to hide, for the mistake to able to happen. That would be the best strategy for interview, like coding interview question. So yeah, that's the end of my presentation, and like, yeah, hopefully that is useful for both the interviewer and like people who looking to take an interview. So let me give the summary on about to recap my point again. So for the employer and interviewer, so yeah, first use structure interview. Having structure to the interview, having like structure is more important than what question you asking the candidate. Second, like if you want to use coding interview, if you want to like include coding interview in your hiring, yeah, please choose the right interview question. And also train your interviewer, test your interview question, and let your interviewer have practice before asking that question to the candidate. And for the student and people who looking to take an interview, yeah, you should first practice doing programming well first before study algorithm. And when you study algorithm, spend time on understanding the foundation. Don't just like take shortcut and do lead coding. So that's the end of my interview, and yeah, for today.
Wow, it's really impressive slides and sharing. Thanks, Wanasit again. I think they are rich content. So although we don't like offline event, we don't have a break time, but I think it's a good time. If you have any question, you can raise a hand or you can type in the chat. And let's say maybe 10 minutes. So please just post any ideas or feedback in the chat or raise a hand. Meanwhile, I personally would have to have some questions as well. Oh, we have one. Sorry, maybe I cannot pronounce everyone's name correctly, but Abdullah-san, you are trying to ask us
yes.
Yeah, please.
So I have one question regarding the system design interview. So you have mentioned like how to judge coding interviews or how to ask coding interviews. But regarding the system design interview, how can I judge oneself, like whether this is perfect candidate for us or not?
Yes, I I afraid like I'm not really qualified to answer that question. I think like yeah I think like because like yeah I think I know about how Indeed run like architecture interview, but I am not expert on that area. But hopefully in the next presentation or something like yeah I think probably just stay tuned or something. I think yeah we will have like probably some interviewer from other type of interview like give a presentation in the coming presentation as well, I think.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Whether there are any other question we have? Okay. As I mentioned, type in the chat is also okay. We will ask for you if you feel not convenient to raise a hand. I think there's one question from me, Wanasit-san. I would like to know, like, Indeed now is like a large company, but I think the principle you mentioned maybe also can be applied for like a medium size, let's say 100 to 500 people's company. Whether the size will affect or like these things, because as you know, like little company, they really require people that immediately can work with them. And for some big company, they have a much space to wait candidates. So whether these things could be changed, it depends on your size and how urgent you want the candidate get passed.
Yes, well, this is awkward. Maybe I should stop sharing the screen. But so I actually like thinking about whether I should include like that part. I actually about the cost of interviewing at Indeed or something as well, but I decide to exclude that slide in the last minute too. But yes, I think like yeah, it also depends on how company like want to invest in the interviewing process as well. So I think the simple back of the envelope calculation is that you could imagine that like yeah as I mentioned, Indeed use 5 interview to interview candidate, and like let's say that for each interview we have 1 or 2 engineer like 1 or 2 people, and for each interview, like we say 1 hour in the interview, 1 hour in the debrief discussion, and another 1 hour say to practice or something. In total, that already account for around to interview to accept 1 candidate. In this spend around like 20 or 30 hours of engineering time to have this candidate. That means this is kind of equivalent to 1 weekly sprint. So as you can imagine, like I think like yeah, if you are like looking to design a structure into it, this might be the thing that you should consider. So yeah, let's say that you want to fill 3 positions, and like each position take 5 interview like this, and then yeah, let's say that your interview passing rate is around 20 or 30%. That means you probably have to interview 15 candidates or something, and
the cost,
that means you have to remove 15 sprint from your roadmap or something. So yeah, that is a cost, and I want to say that yeah, I want to say that it worth it or something, because I work at Indeed, but to be honest, the benefit is difficult to measure, right? I work at Indeed, and I could say that I'm proud that Indeed invest in good hiring and making sure that Indeed is high quality. But at the same time, I also understand that at some company they want to spend less investment on the hiring.
Yeah, actually, I asked this also because I heard that even Facebook, they have at least 2 tracks. One actually is kind of easier to pass, according to my previous colleague who worked for Facebook. He said his track is different from others. So the question is less and easier because they just want to hire people at that time for that position as soon as possible. So I think it is kind of maybe a special case for some teams. I don't know. Of course, it's a company secret maybe, but I don't know whether Indeed have such things. But I think it's hard to say there's none of these things for all the companies. Yeah.
Yes, I afraid it depend on the company culture and just to give another background that I think Indeed I might advertising Indeed too much, but at Indeed the turnover rate is very low. So when people working at Indeed, we like me working at Indeed for 7 years or something. So our turnover rate is very lower than the industry. So if the turnover rate is low, like if you interview someone and typically if on average engineers stay at you for like 1 or 2 years, I understand that in that situation, you might don't want to invest too much into the interviewing process because like you're looking for someone who, but at Indeed, like for each people that we we expect that people would stay at Indeed for very long time. And that's why we on the side that we want to make sure that each candidate, each people that we enter is like passing the bar. And I think we try to be more efficient. We try to tweak to save the interviewer time. But we at Indeed, we kind of on the side that we cautious about like reducing interviewing regulars or some regularity or something.
Thanks for that. I think I will like to. Okay, we have one question here. This is from Dao-san. I have a question that how do you ask questions to candidates with different working experience? Do you have different expectation for different level engineers? If yes, how to choose those questions? I think this is asking like a different candidate have different working experience, then how you, especially for different levels like junior, senior, and principal. So if you have a different expectation, then how you choose the questions? Yeah.
So I think at Indeed, as probably I mentioned, like, so typically like we don't like we don't really ask different questions for different candidate or something. Most of the time it typically the same question because training an interviewer on a question is very costly. As I explained, like we start as a student and then practice over on the same question but typically we train for the same interviewer on the same question. We expect candidate on different level of experience to be able to achieve different level on the same question. So for example, sorry, I cannot really give the specific interview question, but so for senior engineer or something, like we expect the interview, like the candidate to able to recognize multiple way of doing the same thing. For example, like one, if it's junior engineer, maybe you able to come up with one solution or something. But for example, the same question giving to senior engineer, maybe that we expect that person to able to come up and think about multiple solutions and explain trade-off for each of them, and after think about the trade-off, choose one of them and explain why. But as you can see, even in the same question, we kind of expect different candidate with different experience to have a different performance and approach the question differently. And most of the time we train the interviewer to try to identify those different and doing the practice, we practice asking this question to experienced engineer and practice asking this question for engineer who just start at different level of experience. I hope that answer your question.
Dao-san reply. Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, I think okay. There's a reply for that. Especially the architecture interview, candidates with different level of experience might give very much different answers. I think this is kind of true. Yeah, it's not a question. Thank you. Whether we have more questions or any like a feedback? Actually, I have another one. Is but we don't have other. Okay. I think for coding interview, yes, the fundament. I have heard this several times, even when I was a student, that practicing the fundamental algorithm, the idea behind, is more important than cracking coding interview or lead code. But even for like a fundamentals, I would like to also have an idea like you when you show the book, I just think okay, they are all important and they are all fundamental, so I should study all. Even I'm working for a company, have a real contribution, I still get evaluated by the fundamentals, not what I am working now. It sounds like that. I know maybe I'm wrong. So in other words, whether I should overweight the practice and fundamental parts for the interview more than what I'm working now, because sometimes interview ask you your experience, what your current code, what's your like current project. That seems not so important if you compare to the fundamental now in your sharing session. Yeah, is that kind of true for interview?
I think that I actually like, so I think that a little bit of many things. Let me back down. Like for this coding interview question, I think the like your working experience help you to the certain point. I think, but when you work as an engineer, like you probably do a code review. You probably have experience about like, yeah, in production we should write code like this or something, and you learn about that. I think, yeah, that have like that experience would help like your coding interview at some level. And yes, and like, but at the coding interview, like we probably what we really measure the signal, that the skill that we're looking for is we looking if this person able to like, if this person is good at coding in general and able to programming at the same level as we expect engineer at Indeed or something. So it would not give us a signal. It's not designed to give us a signal about like your specialty, your special experience, or your familiarity with certain like skill. I think that for that kind of thing, like I think that maybe architecture interview or like resume deep dive might give us more idea about that kind of signal, that kind your skill on that area. But yes, I think the coding, for the coding interview, I think the skill that we are looking for and skill that we are measuring, your ability to work programming, your programming skill as an engineer, as a normal programming skill.
Yeah, actually, I want to ask this is for another question. Sorry, sure. It's a very interesting talk. So I think you already heard that some company use like homework. I know there are not a problem of that, but it's kind of still popular now. So whether you have any like opinions about the homework style interview?
Yes. So this might be unpopular, or my unpopular opinion among like other interviewers. I think, well, based on both data and my personal experience, like the reason that we shooting coding interview, coding exercise is because that we find that like it correlate with how people actually perform after like the work, and we still haven't find something that overall better. And actually like take home exercise is something that we try, and like, yeah, and but I think like it actually pretty good, give a pretty good signal. I don't know how far much we can, but it also have some downside comparing to whiteboard interview. First, the time spent is different. So you ask commitment for candidates. So if I ask you to do take home exercise, you probably gonna spend more than 1 hour to the candidate or something like, yeah, like, so first it require more time to do coding to take home exercise, and like it also require time for people to check your answer, check your take home answer. And this, we haven't talking about like making sure that you actually work on the problem. You're not asking your friend to work on it or something. So yeah, we try explore different, but so far, like, yeah, that kind of, we still haven't find the right balance and the take home exercise work efficiently yet.
Okay, thanks for that. There's another, I think two. Oh, sorry, the chat is so fast. Okay, the first one is from Kenta-san. How do you evaluate the building library usage when solving problems? Some language like Python have wide building class coverages, which like have encapsulate the algorithm things. Do you ask interviewees to explain the internals for what they are used, or avoid such question? Yeah.
Yes. I think, yeah, it case by case. I think, yes, that very good question. It typically case by case about like, yeah, the easy way is that avoid that question altogether when the candidate use certain programming language. Like, for example, like if we interview like front-end engineer like JavaScript or something, question related to bit manipulation or something, probably impossible or something, but that easy way. But most of the time we typically cannot afford to do that all the time. So so like typically when we ask the candidate to like use some library, if the candidate say they want to use some library, most of the time, most of the interviewer, most of the case, we typically let them. But we would assume, we would expect the candidate to explain how this library work under the hood. And yeah, if the candidate can explain how this library work under the hood or something, and even sometimes we might even ask the candidate like, yeah, how would you think you would implement this library if we ask you to do it or something. So that is a few way to that interviewer can leveling, like making sure that it's still fair or something. But typically to keep candidate focusing, most of the time that I see is that we let candidate using the library, but we expect the candidate to explain how this library is working under the hood. Hopefully that answers your question.
Can I some? Okay, I think you answer his question good. Yeah, or her. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, please.
How much you care about language mastery in the interview, and what kind of signal? For example,
Python.
Yes. I think that I don't know. I feel like it's too separate question, but about how much do we care about mastery of each programming language? Yeah, we care about language mastery. Like we don't care about the corner case of each language. Like we don't care about the difference between Python 3.7 versus 3.9 or something like that. But we care that you master the language. I think like, yeah, one of the sentence that you should be able to turn the idea into code on that programming language like very quick. Like, yeah, like so we typically want that level of mastery. So like, yeah, if you can turn the idea into code in that language, because that typically what you do at work, that what engineers do at work, turn the idea into the code and workable code. And yeah, we expect the candidate to show that level of mastery. And And that probably include memorizing the typical, the frequently used library, frequently used case or something that with library. I would say, for example, if you are in Python, yeah, you probably be using the list using some standard library, using heap. Like if you are like strong Python programmer, you probably experience those. And yeah, then the knowledge about the library and knowledge, the mastery probably intertwine, and we cannot really easily separate them. Yeah, I hope that I able to explain that point well.
Yeah. We have another two.
If the candidate know how to solve a problem but could not give the correct answer, how would you decide whether you accept the actually, I'm sorry, I am not sure like how, but because I think that the question that you're asking in itself is a little bit conflicting. Like if the candidate know how to solve the problem but could not give the correct answer, I don't know what it means. It about his communication skill, or is it about like not able to code the problem or something, or so. Yeah, I afraid like, yeah, either of them could be like the case. Like it's difficult. So yeah, if you're able to solve the problem, you should be able to prove that you able to solve the problem by code. You able to write code to solve the problem, like write a code to like it's not enough to just say that you can solve this problem and having hand wavy explanation or something. Typically it's not enough. Like we looking for someone who actually would able to do this, able to understand the requirement, propose a solution, explain the solution, and turn the solution into code in the real world, right? That the level that we are looking for. And yeah, if you it would be difficult to say yes or for you to pass if you cannot show that level of demonstration during the coding interview. Yeah. For the like she need to use set but could not write it. Yeah, I would say that the example, like, yeah, they need to use set, but if you don't know the programming language, if you not master your programming language of choice, in order to say that to use set in this programming language, you call this function, you do it like this. And yes, if you cannot turn that idea and your imagination solution into the code and show to the interviewer that this is how you do it in Python, this is how you do it in Java, or your programming language of choice, it would be difficult for you to work as an engineer at Indeed as well. Like, yeah, if you cannot do that, that's exactly what engineer is doing, right? So if you cannot do that, I would say that it would be difficult for you to work as an engineer.
Yeah, thanks for the answer. Whether you would like to have tea or take a rest? Yeah.
I think I could. Yeah, but I think I already answered it. But yeah, if anyone have a question, I happy to answer.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. Okay. Anyone? We have any question?
Okay, I have. Okay, I have a question. I'm a woman engineer. So, do you think women engineers have their own advantage in coding interview compared with men? Okay.
I want to say I want to say like no, but now I'm not sure. Let me. I think I cannot have the data to back up my claim or something, but I think I afraid like I don't see any significant difference on the rate that we. So first of all, I think I interview fewer women than men. Like I think it's the fact about our industry that most of the candidate that Indeed like put into the loop. Like most of the candidate people are men, but when the candidate are women or something, I don't feel like the rate that when the man take the interview and pass versus when women take the interview, the passing rate are not that different. I don't think that it different. I don't think I noticed any different, like to answer your question. Like when it comes to interview, where if especially if that female candidate passed the phone screen or something and already start like interviewing, like I think her chance of success and pass to the is like I believe that the gender like doesn't have like anything that affect the success rate for the coding exercise, at least in my experience.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I think we have another one in the chat from Andreas. Do you evaluate as well engineering soft skill of the candidate during coding interview?
Yes, that's a good question, but I'm actually not sure if I can give a good answer. Yes, I think I think we need to break down the soft skill because the soft skill there are many things about soft skill, right? Like good interpersonal or something. I would say one of the soft skill that necessary for that is that communication skill is definitely important. Like you should able to work with the interviewer, like the interviewer like would evaluate how easy it is for to work with this candidate and how easy it is to like for this candidate to understand what the interviewer try to point out or communicate or something. For that kind of level, like for soft skill, that like communication skill is very important. But I actually not sure about all other soft skill. Like when we talk there are many soft skill, right? If we're talking about soft skill like coaching skill or something, maybe some other exercise, some other interview type of interview would do better at give that. Like for example, the ability to leadership and mentoring or something. Probably not in the coding exercise to measure the leadership. Like coding exercise is not for measure leadership skill. We evaluate communication skill during the coding, but probably not every type of soft skill. Hope that answer your question.
Maybe I also wonder this issue as well. Because you mentioned the puzzle solving gives the interviewee sometimes quick pop solutions, but the interviewer just know, okay, this is because he practiced this question before. Whether this is also not good thing because there's no communication, just okay, I know this question, so answer like this. Or as an interviewer, whether you will introduce more, try to lead the discussion for the solution the interview just give you.
Yes, correct. Like thank you very much for pointing that out. Correct. Thank you. I might give the impression that it doesn't mean that during the coding interview, like if I detect that you know this question or I would you fail the interview, it is not or something. But yes, when like we still try to continue, and yes, even if you like know this kind of question, we still expect you to communicate that to communicate that how would you solve the question, like or like what is your approach, is there any alternative, what are the trade-off, and if there are multiple approaches, why you chose this solution over the other solution. Yes, that kind of communication is necessary as well.
I think it's the same when you have an exam in school, you just write an answer and there's no explanation at all. Kind of similar to me. So what do we have other questions? I personally feel interested for another issue is how can you quickly or roughly introduce how the Indeed evaluate whether the interview, especially for coding interview, can really be reflected to the work, the actual work. Like let's say, okay, we by this process, we have such candidates, and then we have several people pass the interview. According to their work evaluation result, we improve our interview process. Whether there's a such feedback loop or there's a such process. Because if you just, okay, we have good interview, but we don't collect data from actual work and the actual evaluation result, it's difficult to say, okay, we have good process.
Yes. Yeah, I need to think about like, yeah, how far I can share like information about Indeed.
Sorry.
But yeah, so I could say that like, yeah, Indeed is like, well, we not as rich as Google that we do the research and publish result in a paper or something, but yes, as Indeed, as you can imagine, like we do evaluate, we analyze like how people perform after we hire, like what are their career trajectory, or what they rating after they getting hired, how they're doing. But let me point out the concern that the thing is that analysis is very difficult. So because after you join, like, yeah, you might go to different team, and you need to wait for people to ramp up, waiting for the ramp up period, and actually start making sure that how people contribute, and making sure that it balance out with different team, different manager, different other things. So I would say that it, yeah, not straightforward, and it's difficult to analyze sometimes. But yes, we have been doing that, but yeah, the result is like, it's not easy to measure. It's not like something on the side, something that we can easily measure. Like evaluating people is still difficult part. Like when it involves, it's difficult to evaluate. But yes, we have been monitoring that, and we make sure that, like, yeah, we care about after the interview or something, how people career go after they join it.
So actually the usual like a company interview will also expect what level you can reach. Actually I have several interviews. They say the expectation to me is kind of totally different from junior to senior. So I kind of feel this question is interesting because I know it's a difficult question. Like if the interview say, okay, we think you are a junior, but actually the person gets a very big contribution and show his ability after he joined the company as a junior, then that must show something wrong with the interview, maybe, or maybe not, because he get a good manager or get a great project with great credibility, something like that. So yeah.
Yes, I think maybe I might go ahead a little bit of myself about like explaining, like, even like, yeah, we have like that, like on about when we do, like, we kind of feel that this candidate solve problem like junior engineer this can, like, but I think, like, yeah, again, like, to give you perspective, this is structure interview, like coding interview is part of structure. We are one data point of other thing that we need to balance, and to not only interview, to evaluate the engineer, it difficult. It like sometimes, like, even like I think you can imagine in your company, in Mercari or something, like, yeah, sometimes junior engineers stumble upon some problem and they solve it, and actually that thing supposed to be a hit, that feature supposed to be a hit, and that junior engineer actually make an impact to a lot of companies. It could happen, right? Like, yeah, like, so that there is certain level of precision that we can analyze or something, and we cannot draw really too deep conclusion on that. So yeah, it still we cannot answer that for sure yet, for that.
Yeah, I think that every industry company would like to know the feedback loop. If a company can build that, that'd be great. But yeah, as you say, it depends on different things. Yeah. Okay. We have another question. This is kind of general, but how difficult the coding? I think this it's kind of too general, but whether Wanasit have any comment or feedback for this one?
How do I say that? I think my advice would be it difficult to say that if it's difficult or not difficult. I would say that like, yeah, if yeah, it's difficult to explain, but let me give a background that like it a coding interview question, and the timing is 1 hour to like, so the question that we expect like engineer who have some experience to understand the problem and able to solve it within 1 hour and have the discussion. So it could not be like totally like unimaginably like difficult, like for example asking you to implement the entire system or something like, yeah, it's probably too difficult. Like it should not be too easy, like, yeah, if everyone can solve the problem, if it like too easy like hello world or something, like, yeah, it would not give enough signal for us to making sure that you are strong enough engineer that able to work day to day at Indeed and able to handle like right and efficient code for when the needs arise. Oh yeah, actually I might have like, so imagine day-to-day work, your day-to-day as an engineering work, but plus that, like, yeah, multiply that maybe 2 or 3 times better. But like the way I think about it is this, like, typically imagine when you are a pilot. When you are a pilot, you probably not going to train on the like, yeah, train the landing train like on like difficult weather or something. But when you actually take the exam or something, it normally more difficult than the work that you do every day. That would be expect, right? Like, so yeah, we know that you would not solve the problem that you're going to solve during the exercise, not gonna be that difficult like every day after you join Indeed. But when the need arrive, when there is a need, we want someone who recognize that pattern and apply and able to solve it. So hope that yeah, that all I can answer for now. Hope that give you some idea about like the difficulty level we're talking about.
I think the pilot is well as a good explanation. That's quite the same spirit. Yeah. Okay. I think we almost run out of time. There's some like 10 minutes left, but last call if we have any question, or we can end today's event. Okay. No. Oh, sorry. One more. One more from William. Yeah. Want to see some?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe let's say like, yeah, let me answer
Okay.
maybe last question, and,
Yeah.
if you have more question or you realize or anything you want to know, I think, yeah, please feel free to email me or ask me question on LinkedIn or GitHub or something later.
Okay. I think we can just pass the last question. So it's how to improve the programming skill. I think that a lot of people want to ask as well.
Yes, yeah, I think, yeah, that all like that very open question to answer. I would say that, yeah, I think that there was a slide that I said that the general programming skill can be practiced at your job, but yes, it's not as easy like that. Like, let me give an example that, like, for example, you can jogging, you can run every day or something. If you exercise, you can run regularly or something. You can say that you practice, but you probably not going to compete in Olympic or something like that. So what makes the difference between people who able to run Olympic versus people who run every day but not getting faster or something would be the deliberation, the attention that you put into practice. So if you just coding every day, do the job the same every day without paying attention, without deliberately making sure that you improve, like you probably not gonna improve. I would say that in order to good at programming, you should pay attention how you do, pay attention to the engineer that do better than you, like how they do it differently than you. Think about what you, when you implement something, ask more senior engineer to review your code and think up, or if you don't have that, like try to study from the more senior engineer, or how, or what the software that you think is well good, like what engineer that you respect or something, read their code and like go to open source project or something. But yeah, there are multiple ways to get better, but one most important thing for me I can give is that be deliberate, not just doing the job as you taught to do day by day. You need to pay attention to what you do and try to measure that you're getting better every day.
Okay, I think that's pretty enough for today. Pretty thank to Wanasit some prepare so many materials and the interesting talk, and also for the personal sharing, for all the feedback. And if we are offline event, we will have uploads, but sorry for that. Yeah, thanks, Neil. And as usual, we will share materials we can share later. And if Wanasit feel okay, we will also share how like contest in, but we will discuss this later and provide more information. And thank you for everyone, especially thank you for the speaker. And we hope to see everyone next time safely and happily. Yeah, thank you very much. That's the end for today.
Yeah, thank you for coming as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Fonda, whether you will end the meeting?
I'm sorry, I don't know how to stop recording it. Wanasit, do you see a button? You don't see a button, right? You see?